Yeah, 'cause we have quite a few questions for him that don't pertain to the public safety. So, so we're gonna get started with our panel. So the panel tonight is about public safety in the community. Since we have a mega shopping center coming to our community, and it's gonna change things. It's gonna change our community. So we want to know from each panel member their plan for safety for our community.
Can I make one suggestion, if I would please? I'm sure that people are probably fairly interested in the homicide that we had on December 17th. And we have the detective sergeant from homicide here, so maybe if we put him on first and then he will get done and then we can leave him, he can go back to doing his important work.
Okay, that's good.
Sergeant Rice.
Good evening, I'm Sergeant Rice from the Homicide Branch. There was a homicide that did occur in your area December 17th. Right now, that investigation is still ongoing. It was not, we do know at this time that it was not related to the neighborhood, and the decedent was not a resident of the neighborhood. We have very prominent leads that are ongoing with the investigation, and we can fairly, in a good conscience, say that the homicide itself was not related to the neighborhood in any way whatsoever. It just so happened the park is where it is. It's an isolated park. The perpetrator, we know, is probably familiar with this area and familiar with the park being as isolated as it is. All right, so that's where we are right now. We have not made an arrest as of yet, but we do have very prominent leads and are following up on them as we speak.
So was the victim killed there or someplace else and brought there?
No, he was killed in that area there.
So it was a homicide. So I know they were trying to say it was a suicide maybe?
I have no information on that. I do know that it is a homicide. It's being classified as a homicide. We know that the decedent was killed in that area there. It's an isolated area, and I know a lot of people are asking, you know, they did hear gunshots or whatever. We went around and passed out flyers to, especially the residents on the Fort Lincoln side of the park. That park is very isolated, and even in daylight hours, I think it would be very hard for you to hear anything that happens within inside of that park area. There is a gate that's on the Fort Lincoln side of the park, so we do know that the perpetrator and the victim walked into that park. And that's where the incident occurred.
Do you have an extra copy of the flyer you distributed that you can leave for our records?
I do have some additional flyers that you may have. Yes.
Do you know, was the homicide coincident with a robbery, or did the two people know each other?
They were familiar with one another. Yes, ma'am.
Is the lighting better up there, and are there any more patrols, or sending in more patrols regularly?
That I do not know. You can talk to Lieutenant Hughes. She's the PSA lieutenant in charge of this area. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, a lot of things are coming up. Midnight tour duty, people are getting into the park, so we're increasing our patrols up in the park on the midnight tour duty. Because that's when a lot of things are happening. Because of the area is so quiet, and they can get into the park. So we can increase our patrols up there for the midnight.
I noticed that there's a lot more lights up there, and the lights are on longer, so that helps a lot. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And are the officers coming down? I noticed, I live in the Petersburg Village, and they come down, but they don't come around in the, it seems like they're just like passing through. I was wondering, are they doing a better surveillance? Because we've had a couple of apartments, several over there, even though we do have, MPD is occupied there, you know, on a couple of days out of the week, but I was just really wondering whether they were really surveilling or just riding through.
Well, we will do that as well.
When you say the park area, are you talking the entrance from Fort Lincoln Drive going into the park with the gazebos?
Well,
That area?
the incident happened not far from the gazebo, but the park itself is accessible on pretty much all sides. If you're going there by foot, you are able to transverse into the park from the Fort Lincoln side. If you drive over the sidewalk, you can drive up into the park. But actually, the access to the park is pretty open because you can just walk through the park. There's no gate surrounding the park that's blocking it off all together. So you can just walk up into the park at any given time.
So was he near the school? I mean,
Well-
school building? Then,
Yeah, I mean, does everybody understand that we're talking about the hill right up behind the school here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Right.
it was just,
So he
yeah.
was near the school, but still in the park area.
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
With the new traffic that's is coming upon us, what's going to be done then? Because you know the druggies and the dealers and all, they're looking for a quiet place. And once they discover that this is a quiet place, then they'll be all up in here too. How are we going to?
That's really a question for the panel, not for this
Yeah,
gentleman. He's just talking about one incident.
Commander Stolberg.
go ahead, go take it there, Kevin.
People that I don't want to see no more dead people.
Yeah, we don't want to see anyone dead people up there as well, ma'am, but I believe, you know, this is definitely the first homicide that occurred in the park that I'm aware of. And there's only one other homicide that occurred in this area, and that was 2 years ago, and that was a domestic situation, so.
Did you explain that this was not a random?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay.
So it's just an isolated incident. It's just, this park was picked, people were familiar with this park. They're not from the community here. They just so happen to be familiar with the park, and the incident just happened to occur.
Somebody wanted to do harm to this gentleman, and they just happened to pick that spot. They could have picked any spot. They happened to pick that spot.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, did this person live in this area or?
Which person? Right? The
person
decedent?
that was,
No, ma'am.
they did not,
No, ma'am.
young person?
The flyer, I said the flyer, he's relative.
Yeah, he's an older.
He's an older person.
Older than me, I mean. Not old, but older than me. 50, I think 57, 58.
Is it?
I know I get insulted when people say older and they're my age.
We're seniors.
How do you know they walked in?
Excuse me?
The question is, what's just asked for me, how do you know that both of them walked there?
Our investigation, we've done a lot of investigating into this case and have done a lot of work, and our information has us believe that that's what occurred in this situation here. Although there hasn't been an arrest, there should be one.
Yeah, I think we're going to have an arrest in this case very soon.
But we do know from the investigations that we've gone out and done, the interviews that we've done, that the perpetrator and the victim walked into the park.
So once we make an arrest, we can say a lot more than we can say right now. I know that's frustrating, but we certainly don't want to say things now that may tip off the person that we're looking for.
thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
So we can expect more presence of the police during the time we're going to have all these stores and stuff coming up?
Commander Solberg is going to talk about, the 5th District has put together a plan to deal with, presence and control and traffic and all of that stuff with the opening of our favorite store there, Costco. So he'll talk about that.
Okay, I see our full panel has arrived, so let's give them all a round of applause. Okay, I think we'll start with Professor Savage first, so she can give an overview of the panel discussion. Professor Joanne Savage is associated professor at AU, and she has degrees she has a BA from Southern Illinois University. Is that at Carbondale, Illinois? MA from University. And she has MA from the University of California, Irvine, and a PhD from the University of California. And her expertise at AU is in criminology, crime, violent crime, causes of crime, pursuant to the development of violent, media crime, persistent and chronic offending, and socioeconomic factors in crime, and long-term violent crime trends in Washington, D.C. So, Professor Savage.
Thank you very much. Would you like me to hold my comments to 5 minutes or 10 minutes or keep it short? I wasn't sure how long I was supposed to talk. Can people hear me if I speak up? Sure. I'll try to speak up. So thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored. I apologize for being late. I did leave very early to get here, but I apologize. So I'm going to confine my remarks to just sort of the most important things that I can think of related to this situation. I know Roy had asked me to deliver 2 things, and I can't deliver either of them. One is a sort of 40-year history of the crime in the area, and the police department may have that for the localized area, but it's not something I have access to. You have to put in sort of a special request for that, or subpoena it or something. But we have other people here who probably can talk about that. And the other issue was data about, neighborhoods where they've built huge shopping centers. And about 5 years ago, I did a comprehensive review, digging out everything I could find on mixed-use development, which is kind of like this. And I can tell you there's almost nothing published about it. But I did a comprehensive review of everything I could dig out related to it, and I'll share with you what I learned. A lot of it's going to sound like common sense, but maybe it'll confirm your common sense, and you can kind of know how to proceed if you want to sort of work toward your common goal of keeping crime low in this area. The first thing is we're going to ignore people, and that some people are more criminal than other people. When we look at crime in places, we know that a certain percentage of the population is going to commit crime. And the first theory that criminologists talk about is social disorganization theory. The idea that places that look disorganized, that have signs of disorder like graffiti and litter and things like that, they have higher crimes. In the policing world, they talk about broken windows policing, where you fix a bunch of broken windows and voila, you get better rates of crime in the neighborhood because the neighborhood just looks more cared for. We think this is the case because people are somehow unconsciously thinking, well, nobody gets in trouble here, or nobody really cares here, so I can commit my crimes in this neighborhood because nobody's really watching out. So one of the best things you can do to keep crime low in a neighborhood is to just keep up the neighborhood, mow your lawns and take care of your yards. I took a quick drive around. I was kind of lost anyway. I looked up at the houses and things. It looks like you have a pretty nice neighborhood. Well, keep that up, right? Sometimes when they build businesses around your neighborhoods, it's a little harder to do because you have new people throwing their trash around and things like that, so that's a little bit of trouble. Now, from a social disorganization point of view, things could stay just fine here. If the shopping center is built and it's really nice and it's all that they're promising on the website, you can actually improve things, I mean, if they're going to put in those lovely walkways they're talking about in the plazas and all that sort of thing, and they keep them up, it's sort of a zero-sum, a null effect, right? But the concern is over time. Will they sell the shopping center to someone that doesn't care? Will they keep it up? Will they spend the money to keep it up? And then the areas that aren't theirs to keep up. It's in their interest to keep up the shopping center, but there might be bus stops and things in the interim that can kind of go south. And then if the shopping center is successful, you might see other businesses sort of coming in. I was noticing along South Dakota or whatever, where you have the gas station and the Goodwill and whatever, and you have to sort of wonder about the new businesses and things, and this is in the future. So, but it's something that is the concern of sort of keeping the place nice and partnering with the county or government or whatever to sort of keep the bus stops nice and things like that. Okay, so that's one part of it, and that's something we can't predict. We just don't know from the information that you have how well these people or developers are going to come in and take care of that. Just something to keep an eye on. But your instincts are right. When you walk into a neighborhood and there's graffiti all over or whatever, yes, there's more crime there. The second issue about places and crime is related to opportunity. We assume that if they're going to bring thousands of new people into a neighborhood, some of them are going to take criminal opportunities. You know, you have 1,000 people, some of them, if they see a good chance to steal something, will steal stuff. Now, in the present case, my expectation is that most of that's going to happen at the shopping mall. There's going to be all kinds of opportunities to shoplift, and steal people's purses and things like that over there, and your neighborhood would not be the target of that. However, in a sort of mixed-use development, when you have businesses and residences near each other, there are a lot of people that don't live in the neighborhood, and I think your concern might be that they might burglarize your houses or break into your cars if you're parked on the street and things like that. And that is a concern. Now, driving by, one thing I didn't know is that you're on a hill. I was going to tell you to build a wall. However, you're on a hill. So the chances of someone who's at a bus stop down at the bottom, you know, coming in and out of the shopping center, looking up and admiring your beautiful homes and wanting to go up and commit a burglary is quite a bit lessened because they're not going to want to climb up there to get it. However, that's the concern, is the sort of opportunity that you have targets and you have motivated offenders. We're going to assume there will be some. Then you have targets, and how lovely are your homes, how easy are they to get in and out of. People that want to burglarize a house, they aren't master criminals generally, but they'll look at a situation and think, I could get in and out of there. They probably have nice stuff. So those people who live closest to where new people are on the streets are probably going to have most concerns, although like I said, climbing the hill. However, a shopping center like this is, it's across the way, people will be driving in there, and they're probably not going to even look up at the houses, right? My concern is if, say, they start putting bus stops and things like that very close to your houses. So my suggestion, if I live in the neighborhood, and you seem all very involved and interested, I'd try to get them to put the bus stops in the shopping center. The buses drive in there, and then the shopping center people can worry about the bus stops, they can worry about graffiti on the bus stops, they can worry about the trash can on the bus stops.
I like that idea. But there are seniors that get on the bus right outside of the senior building, and that would be a walk for them.
Right, and some of the things that we do, and you know that, but some of the things that you do to reduce opportunity make life less convenient for you. Some of you are going to want to walk over to the shopping center, for example. So, well, the first concern for me in terms of opportunity is just sort of minor stuff. People breaking into cars, people breaking into your house isn't minor, but they're not likely to be drawn to your houses unless it's very convenient and they see something that they want. And climbing that hill's trouble, or having a bus stop be blocks away is going to be trouble. Unless they start bringing people to live in the area, and that's sort of out in the future, right? Yeah. The second thing that I get concerned about with mixed-use development is robbery, which is a very serious crime and a terrible thing, and can be kind of accidentally designed into a neighborhood. Typically, though, when people talk about sort of hot spots for robbery, they talk about people walking from bars and restaurants that are open kind of late, over the metro station, the bus station, to their parking lots and things like that. In your situation, if people are patronizing the shopping mall and they're walking from their car to the bar that's there or a restaurant or something, it's not going to change things for you very much. But if you walk to and from the shopping mall, in the winter it's very dark, even if you just go for dinner, the concerns are things like lighting, making it very visible, so that there aren't good hiding places. You don't design a situation where there's a sort of large landscaping that people can hide behind and wait for passersby, and that sort of thing. So those are the two things that are the main problem when I've looked at sort of mixed-use development plans. Usually, I just have to confess to you, a few years back, the reason I looked into it in the first place was I was invited to a conference of designers and architects. We're all gung-ho about mixed-use development. And They do not think systematically about crime. They told me this. They say what they do is they think about lawsuits. So in the past, the example that I was given was a hotel chain where there was a rape in the alley behind the hotel, and they got sued for it. So then in the future, they put in lights behind the hotel, because that, in the case of a lawsuit, they can say, well, we put lights in behind the hotel. And not really thinking systematically about, reducing crime. So that is a little bit of a problem. Without kind of a master plan, if I had a plan, I'd look for where they're putting the bus stops, how close those bus stops are to your houses. And then the sort of longer term concern about what other development will this shopping center bring. If they're going to start buying up property along South Dakota, a little closer to your homes, depending on what those businesses are, it could be problematic. Anyway, I'll sit back and let the other presenters share what they have to share.
So, to summarize what you just said to us is that the shopping center will not impact my livelihood because it's over there. It's
Well, I don't know about your life and your quality of life and all the other issues like traffic, but in terms of criminal activity, if I lived here, I would have the same concerns that everybody else has. And without a crystal ball and not knowing how they're going to do it, we don't know. But you do have a pretty good sort of ecological barrier between yourselves and the shopping center. And people coming in and out of the shopping center will mostly drive, and presumably, because you don't have a lot of housing here.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't want to be rude, but
oh, I don't mind.
The bottom line here is that Fort Lincoln has been a well-kept secret to a certain degree. We are getting a lot of traffic now. People are being misdirected. They're actually coming up Commodore thinking that they can get to Costco. So this area at one time used to be the place where you steal a car and burn it.
All the time.
Really?
Boats, motorcycles.
So I just want to put that out there.
Well, let me talk to you a little bit about this. I just finished, and there's been some mention of it in the news in the past few days. I just finished an 18-month study, a very in-depth study of economic development around the city and how it's impacting policing and crime and public safety. And I can tell you right now, anecdotally, the Costco's has been here since just before Christmas, and the last 30 days, crime in this area is robberies down 82%, ADWs are down 50%, burglaries are down 20%, thefts are down 69%, and theft from autos are exactly where they were the 30 days prior to that. What I can tell you what I think will happen just from being in DC and knowing this area, and I grew up here. I mean, I literally grew up on Tuxedo Road, so I can tell you if the gas station goes in, the crime that we're going to see, so you'll see people leave their purse in their car and get out to pump their gas, and their purse is going to get stolen. So I think we're going to see an increase in theft. Actually, I'm shocked that the theft is still down. I think the reason robberies are down right now is because Fort Lincoln was so isolated before. If somebody was walking to go to the Metro bus stop, it was easy to rob them. Now there's a steady stream of cars coming up down, so it's not that easy to rob somebody and be anonymous anymore. So I think the activity has helped us in terms of robberies, because the single biggest hotspot for robbery in the city, and in every ward of the city, is walking to and from a Metro stop, train station, or a Metro bus station. That is the single biggest target for people that want to commit robbery. That's where they go, that's what they watch. Especially, as the young lady said, is that when it always picks up and when it starts getting dark earlier, because you've got commuters that come home from work and they get off the bus now at 5:30, and at 5:30 it's dark. And then they're going to walk. So that's the single, but so clearly with the robbery stats dropping the way they are, I think the traffic has helped us a lot here. I do think over time, as that shopping center gets developed, and there has been a lot of studies about criminal patterns, you have a lot of new people coming through the neighborhood that never came through here before. And so there is a routine activities theory about crime, that people commit crimes along paths that are part of their routine activity. So criminals don't go to a neighborhood they've never been to before and commit crime. They just don't, because they don't know how to get away, they don't know how to escape routes, they just don't know enough. But if it's a longer route to and from work, if it's along their route to and from their girlfriend's house, if it's along their route to and from someplace they go regularly, part of their routine activities, they get familiar with the area, then they're going to start, picking up crime. Now, I can tell you, theft from auto has been huge in this neighborhood, always has been, and they love the senior building lot, and they love down on Appleberry and Cherry, right? Remember, they have all the cars they jack up and take off the wheels and all that stuff. So we already have a problem with that. So if we're going to pick up any routine activities theory, people coming through to do crime here, I think that's what we're going to be looking at, is probably more of the theft from autos, breaking into cars and things like that. Because it is, late at night, real late at night, it's quite isolated up here. It's not dark, at least not where I am, because thanks to the senior building, I got nice bright lights. It's dark down Appleberry, Cherry, and down in some of those areas. I think those are the areas where you're more at risk. But I actually think the development here is not a bad thing for Fort Lincoln. I think we'll probably, over time, you're going to see crimes down in that shopping center area. You'll see people, like I said, hitting that gas station and snatching purses and maybe jumping in somebody's car and taking off while they're out pumping their gas. But I really don't see it being a bad thing for us in terms of crime. I mean, you do have to remember, though, that you've added, 300 housing units here? So now there's 300 new units, and who knows how many people are in. Most of these households have at least 2 or 3 people, so you've added a few hundred new residents. And when you have a few hundred new residents, there's going to be some increase in reported crime. There'll be domestic assaults inside of people's homes. There'll be, other things. So, but I actually think bringing more activity to the area is not a bad thing. Fort Lincoln was a great place to take. Every time we had a crime involving a car or carjacking, always brought them to Fort Lincoln and torched them all the time. Right? And then before they broke ground for Costco, we had a guy shot at down here, remember in the parking lot, like right under my window. Thought I was dreaming. Do I hear gunshots? Really? So I don't think it's a bad thing for us. It's a little bit of a nuisance, because all of a sudden now, and it used to be, there was no cars going up and down our street. Now there's like a steady stream of cars all the time. So it's a nuisance for us right now, but I really don't know it's going to be a bad thing. That's just my experience here and being in the area, and then all the economic development that I've looked at around the city. Really the demand and the crime issues are going to be around those nightlife areas, around those entertainment areas, and around the areas where you've got nightlife and entertainment areas and all the condos. That's where we're going to see the demand and the crime stuff start to really bubble up.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, we're going to go to Councilman McDuffie, because he has to leave early.
Good evening, everyone. I want to begin by thanking Ms. Lily Griffin and all the members of the board, as well as Mr. Pearson, for the invitation to attend tonight. I do apologize, man, for leaving early, but the last 3 days I've spent at home with my daughter because she's a little sick. So as a result, I had to push a lot of meetings off. And some of those meetings I had to push to this evening, so I will have to run in a little while. But I did want to stop past to make sure I had an opportunity to speak with you all to answer some questions. There's not a whole lot I would have to offer in terms of what the topic of this panel is, given that the chief went before me. I will tell you that just being a native Washingtonian, somebody who grew up in Ward 5, just to dovetail on what was said already about what this neighborhood was like before you had the Costco. The first note that I jotted down on my paper was isolation versus activity. Before you had the Costco, you had much more of an isolated area around the area where Costco is now, and not everybody's in the same, particularly the chief. Every time I rolled up that strip, you had a burnt out vehicle, right?
Or boat.
And so, the increased activity to a certain extent will help to mitigate what's going on up in that area. The challenge, though, with the increased a number of residents to the community, you also increase the number of targets, potential targets for somebody who wants to commit a crime. At the same breath, we also increase more activity to potentially thwart crimes in the community. So it has the effect of being a benefit, sometimes a drawback. My role as a council member in this whole discussion, I think, is A, to help to coordinate delivery of services. Obviously, the mayor has control over all those agencies, including MPD. and my role as a councilman is to work with the mayor's office to help coordinate delivery of services to you all, as well as provide oversight of the different government agencies. I don't sit on the Judiciary Committee, which has direct oversight of MPD. However, in my capacity as a member of the committee as a whole, when issues or legislation comes up, I do have an opportunity to weigh in, to vote on it, to sit on the different hearings and ask questions and things like that. And so obviously legislation, if there's a need to introduce legislation, that's one of the roles that I play as a council member. Just to mention to you all, so you all know, while I don't sit on the Judiciary Committee, I do sit on 4 committees. I sit on the Economic Development Committee, I sit on the Transportation, Public Works and Environment Committee, I sit on the Committee on Human Services, as well as the Committee on Workforce Development. And generally, most council members sit on 3 committees. I actually have the privilege of sitting on 4 committees, which means you all have increased representation in Ward 5. I'm also the new chair of the Committee on Government Operations, which is a huge committee that has about 19 different agencies, has the Board of Elections, has a new Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, has the Department of General Services, and a host of other agencies. And so that's essentially the role that I play in this. Just a little bit about my background. In addition to being a councilman, before I started to serve as councilman, I actually had the privilege of working with Chief Lanier and folks at MPD as an advisor to the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice right here in the District of Columbia. So I helped to coordinate some of the activities and the policies around what was going on in the public justice safety cluster agencies, including MPD, fire and EMS, and everything you can think about in the city that touches on public safety. So that's some of the things that I did. I'm a former prosecutor in Prince George's County, also as well a former civil rights attorney in the U.S. Department of Justice. And so that's a little bit about what I've done before I this seat. I think those past experiences help inform some of the things I want to do as a council member. But ultimately, what I do as a council member is informed by you all and what your needs are, what your goals are, what your priorities are. And so in addition to sitting on this panel and trying to contribute to this conversation about crime, obviously if there are other concerns or needs that you have, I'm your representative and your advocate on the council to help try to impact and influence and make sure that we get just as many resources, if not more, here in Ward 5, just like the other wards in the city. And so, again, I want to thank you all for inviting me here tonight. Obviously, I work in close coordination with a lot of different agencies, NPD being one of the most important agencies that I work with. I will tell you, you all probably know this, that Chief Lanier, Brenda Solberg, Lieutenant, and all those other folks in NPD work extremely hard. They have a tough job. You all know that every time they put on that uniform and go out the house, they put their lives at risk. That really matters. I really appreciate the work that they do. And every time I pick up the phone and call these folks, they pick up and they answer, and they're ready to give me information I need to help keep you all informed. And so I just wanted to let them know, publicly say that, and let you all know how they work, and that I'm here to serve you all. So anything I can do, please let me know.
No more super clubs in Ward 5.
You know, I'm already working against that. I'm already working against that. And seriously, one of the things, I won't get into everything I've been trying to do legislatively in other ways, but the Industrial Land Transformation Task Force that I introduced, and I'm working now with the mayor to put in place an executive order to stand up that task force, is going to look at all the industrial land that we have here in Ward 5. We got 70% of the city's industrial land. So when you think of all the industrial land in the city, Ward 5 is host to 70% of it. So when you think about all the places you have the nightclubs, you have the strip clubs, you have the medical marijuana facilities, just know that what I would like to do is to have the city stop looking at our area at Ward 5 as business as usual, as a place of least resistance, and start to think more creatively about how we utilize those spaces and those warehouses. You know, I kid around a lot, but it's really a serious issue. My daughter, who's 6, is really on the party circuit right now. She's in first grade. There are a lot of 7-year-old parties, 6-year-old parties. And my wife and I have burned up a lot of gas, went out to Gaithersburg, Anne Arundel County, and all these other places outside the city to go to the Jamborees and the Chuck E. Cheese's and all these other places. And my position is, why can't we have some of those places here in Ward 5 so we don't have to travel as far? Why can't we have movie theaters and bowling alleys and a lot of other places that we generally travel outside of the city right here in Ward 5? So the type of quality amenities that we want, as opposed to having to travel outside of the city and spend our tax dollars somewhere else.
Thank you.
Sure.
And the super club, really, the city, in dealing with the ABC establishments and nightlife establishments, it's a whole other ballgame when you have a super club. When you have 1,300 people that have been in an establishment drinking, all coming out at the same time at 2:30 in the morning, it is, and they're all in Ward 5. I mean, literally, I think we have one that's on the border you know, 5E, 1D, over on the 1D side, but it is a huge, huge drain on manpower, and you know, you've seen it, and we really appreciate you as a resident, and as, because when they're having the events over there on Chillum, I can hear that from, you know, my window at night, all night long, and I think as for all of us, a resident, as the chief, I think that's, what you're doing is good for Ward 5. They got all this space, there's plenty of room to put nice establishments, they don't have to be the super.
And we're going to work with you all to bring more nice establishments. There were 2 clubs that wanted to set up on New York Avenue, and they were seeking ABC alcohol licenses to operate. I sent letters to the ABC board opposing both of them. Fortunately, one has withdrawn their application at this point. That's not to say that the fight is over, but just know that I've heard all the concerns. When I knocked on thousands of doors on the campaign, you all told me in no uncertain terms that you don't want more of these establishments, you want fewer, you want different amenities. And I just want to work with you all to try to make some of those things happen, to deliver some results on that with that front, and continue to work with you all to make sure we have what I think is the best ward in the entire city.
And I would like to say this while we're here, Mr. McDuffie. For Port Mechanism, it's a very dark area all the way around. I think we need more lighting, stronger lighting. And of course, you already have the drive-throughs. Maybe it could be more oftener. The other thing is for the seniors in the area, as well as the homeowners that do not have cars and would like to go to the shopping, maybe a bus could be brought up. Because when I moved here in '92, there was a bus that came to pick us up at all of the buildings there. Wesley House wasn't here then. And we went shopping. Laurel, you name it, not Pennsylvania, but just around the area, even going to lunches. Then the other thing is, I mean, that would be a great thing for us to have. Now, those that go to church at night and don't have, and sometimes they don't have a car all the way home. Now, I would go to church, but I wouldn't come home and go through I can drive faster than I can walk. And once I get home and get on my walking here, it crawls to a crawl. So and then my parking lot is dark. My car was broken into, and the airbag was removed, and the ceiling lights were disassembled. These are the type of things that and right now, my side doors, the rubber has been moved like somebody been jimming in them because I have a Ford wagon, Windstar. And the rubber right around the window of the sliding door is protruding because, and then I got good smellers, and sometimes when I get in there, it felt like it smelled like somebody been in there beside me. And I don't get in there too often, so when another scent is in there, you can tell. But now, it's a type of thing, and I'm parked out there on the parking lot. There is no gate out there. They're coming in, and we have a lot of traffic there at my building, and in some other buildings. And this is all day long. We need that as well, and then what's the other thing I have down here? Seafood and traveling at night, and don't let the unwanted businesses come into our neighborhood to bring it down. That will help bring our community down.
No, I completely agree with everything you just said, particularly that last point about the unwanted businesses. That was sort of goes to what I was trying to talk about with the Industrial Land Transformation Task Force, so we don't continue to get the undesirable types of businesses that we don't want, and we have more opportunities for the businesses of the sort that we do want. More retail, more sit-down restaurants, more shopping opportunities and things like that. So we're working to try to address that issue. The lighting around the park is something that has come up a number of times. I thought that we had seen an enhancement recently with some of the lighting. I know we had brought it up in some of our internal meetings in the office, so I'll work to follow up on that to see what the status of that is. And then you mentioned transportation. I got to tell you, transportation for our seniors is a very important issue. I know it. Everywhere I go in the ward, we've got the 3rd largest senior population in the city. It used to be the 2nd largest population after the current census. We moved down to 2. Hopefully after the next census we'll be back up to number 1. But it's an issue that is consistent everywhere I go when I talk to seniors. It's something that I'm thinking about, and I've talked to the office of aging Folks in my office have been reaching out to some of the nonprofits to see how we might be able to enhance transportation options for our seniors to be able to get you all out during the day and really enjoy some of the retail and those some of the places that you used to be able to go to. Funding has been an issue historically, so we want to see how we might be able to work to try to figure out in the budget if we can restore some funding to some of these areas. And then the Senior Citizen Advisory Council is one of the things that I'm working to start. And that mobile in my office, can you stand to that just so everybody knows, you know already, but that mobile in my office is my chief of staff. She's the chief of staff in my office, and she's been working with folks in Fort Lincoln and other parts of the world to coordinate around